Hello, and welcome to episode 7 of the Hear Her Story podcast, a show produced by the Women in Manufacturing Association. I am Allison Graylis, the founder and president of WIM, and I'm thrilled to sit down today with our longtime member and former chair of the WIM board, Karen Norheim. Karen is the president of American Crane and Equipment Corporation in Douglasville, Pennsylvania. Karen will share today how she empowers employees to explore new technologies. Hear us discuss this and our mutual love of the movie Total Recall in just a moment. I'm thrilled to have as my guest today for a candid and informative conversation, Karen Norheim, President and COO at American Crane Equipment Corporation. Karen has been a longtime supporter of the Women in Manufacturing Association and Education Foundation. I think I first met Karen when we invited her to be a panelist at one of our past summits, our big conferences that we produce annually. And she's also the past chair of the Women in Manufacturing Association. And we had the great pleasure of her serving as our leader in 2019. So please help me in welcoming Karen to our Hear Her Story podcast. Welcome, Karen.
Thanks so much for having me, Allison. It's great to be here.
It's great to have a discussion with you. And as we were talking, it's been a while since we chatted, so I'm excited to catch up, to hear about everything that's going on with you personally and professionally at American Crane Equipment, and to also talk about your journey as a woman in manufacturing.
Awesome. It'll be a good conversation today for sure.
So, you and I have gotten the great pleasure of working together for many years, and, you're an excellent person to work with because I think we're kind of kindred spirits and that we both, I believe, are pretty big picture thinkers. I think we're both pretty creative. And we like to get problems solved. And I think it was such a pleasure working with you as our chairperson for that reason, because you really came to our organization at a pivotal time for us as we, we're growing as an organization, as we're needing to figure out kind of ways and methods to expand. And so your insights were really hugely helpful. You've excelled in manufacturing at your family business that you're now leading. And, when you were younger, did you ever think you'd be in manufacturing or leading in a manufacturing company?
No, definitely not. So I grew up with the business. Obviously, American Crane is my father's business, and our family's business. And so I had been in the shop, and I did love the smell of a machine shop and the oil, and there was something about that I always found interesting. But I never wanted to go into the family business. I had a whole other plan, and I was planning on in a different industry. And what happened was my dad came and recruited me to work for him. And I was reluctant, but I decided I had had a lot of great things in my life because of him. And I do and still do admire him as a business person. So I figured, okay, well, I don't know how cool manufacturing will be, but I'll give it a shot. And now I think I'm coming up on 19 years with American Crane. So definitely one of the best decisions of my life. I really feel that through American Crane, I've been able to find that passion for manufacturing and really the best job I've ever had.
That's amazing. So 19 years now at your family business. So what were you originally thinking you'd be doing had it not been now for manufacturing?
Well, when I was a little kid, I wanted to be president of the United States. That I think I'm glad that's not my route. So I like president of American Crane. But when I was in college, I studied marketing and international business. So I envisioned actually living abroad somewhere, working for a company. I also entered the ski industry out of college. So I worked in the marketing department for Stratton Mountain up in Vermont, and I had visions of moving out west and staying in that industry. And so manufacturing was not on the radar screen. So I'm actually really grateful to my dad because he had the patience and the foresight to recruit me. I could have missed, this opportunity in manufacturing, which, Allison, is what we talk about all the time, right? How we have to make sure that people are aware of the wonderful opportunities that the industry provides.
So as your father came to you about the opportunity to join the family business and to someday rise in the business to be its leader, did you have trepidation about kind of taking over from your father and kind of the culture he built and building your own unique culture and identity at the company? What was that like?
Yes, definitely. I mean, when I first came, I said to my dad, I'm going to try this out and I'll see if I like it. And then if I don't like this, I'm out, And so, he didn't really even talk about me becoming the president until a couple of years, into working for him. It was really a progression. I came in doing marketing and IT, because I happen to have skills in technology as well as marketing education. And then I implemented an ERP system, which really helped me to understand the business. And then he just kept evolving the experiences and the relationship and the mentoring that brought me to where I am today. So it was very, very rewarding. And then really the title of president I've had, I was just talking with someone, I became president in 2019, just a few months before COVID. Prior to that, I had been executive vice president. So I was still his number two at the time. But yeah, stepping into that role, I really realized at the time that I needed to do a cultural reboot. So my dad's culture was, we like to call it Viking law. He's from Norway. And so it was, kind of unwritten code of conduct that you pass down by word of mouth. And it was time to put that on paper, solidify it, and lock it in, because I had real concerns about when he's not here, being able to continue that culture. And also it was time to build upon it. So we did a cultural reboot. We're coming up on 3 years now to Grit Matters, Perseverance, Heart, and Integrity. And it's really the culture that my dad created, just amplified to that next level with my spin on it. And I've become much more comfortable being the leader and growing myself. This is a lifelong journey, right? We're always learning and evolving and developing our own skills as well. So it's been fun.
So as you developed and rolled out this new culture or refreshed culture of Grit Matters, how did you do that? Is it something that you arrived at by yourself? Was it done through kind of finding a consultant that was a great partner in evaluating employees? Was it lots of employee interviews, surveys? Kind of what does that process look like for other companies that might be thinking about changing their culture or doing a reboot?
Well, as you know, I'm that combination of dreamer and doer. So I want to, get it done. And so I came to the revelation. I'm part of a Vistage group, which I think we've talked about before. And there's a lot of, having those mentor groups where you get to, whether it's through WIM has your executive groups. I think it's a similar kind of concept. But I have other professionals who run businesses, and we collaborate together. And I was hearing what they were doing, and I had the epiphany of, oh my goodness, I've got to do something about this culture piece now, and it was really urgent. So from there, I worked with a smaller group of our leadership team, kind of working to figure out what those core values, we had core values and a mission statement, but it needed to evolve. So that the mission, vision, and values, kind of pulling that all together. And then from there, it was the actual, the actions that make it happen. And I emulate my process after, there's a book called 2-Second Lean by Paul Akers. I use that book. And then also Dave Friedman has a book about culture. And both of those really give you kind of a step-by-step guide on how to kind of put your pieces in. So I took all of those, synthesized them into the Karen twist, which, we had a launch event. And obviously we have our culture and all of our messaging constantly, even more so now from the things that have happened over the last couple of years. So we have weekly video, Friday emails that go out, culture events. We have a culture team now, but all of these things really to make sure that our people realize that they're the most important part of our business. And I think it's really important to do that right now. Giving them a safe space with which to be awesome is really the goal, right? Creating that environment where they can solve problems and be empowered. And so we're always kind of tweaking and working towards it. I like to think of it as gardening. The work is never done, right? You get to plant the seeds, cultivate, grow, prune, weed. You get the great harvest, and then you got to do it all again. So it's this idea of growing people and growing culture. It's a labor of love, but very rewarding.
So with pandemic that we've had for, gosh, a year and a half plus now, did that disrupt at all your culture journey and all this great work that you've done to kind of allow people to achieve that awesomeness and to feel part of a team and feel connected and communicated with?
Well, the experience of the pandemic brought two things. So first, thank goodness we did that work, because we needed that foundation to survive, what we needed to survive over the coming months. So it was very apparent quickly that was time well spent, and we had done the right thing, because people really pulled together so that we were able to kind of deal with the situation at hand. And then it turned into a rally point where, you know, we had a common enemy, right, to come together, and it actually served to enhance the culture, I think, even further, and really have stronger bonds with each other, and also allowed me to grow as a leader and kind of put in place my key pieces for keeping the business running. And that all kind of dovetailed together. But we ended up with more communications. That's when we started doing videos. I mean, during that time period, we did more than once a week, but now we've kind of found that sweet spot, and we send things to people's homes, especially because we have still have some remote workforce. It definitely served to further solidify the culture versus not. But now I think we're in a period where, you know, everything comes in a cycle, just like, you know, just like a farmer cycle. And so we're kind of at the point now where we're planting new seeds, getting ready, you know, for that next sort of push of how do we keep the momentum going and keep that environment thriving, and have people still feel, you know, empowered and able to do their job.
So just for clarity too, for our listeners, so how many employees do you folks have? And are you at a single facility or multi-facility
we
location?
we have approximately 170 employees, and we have one main manufacturing facility, that's in Pennsylvania, that has probably 75% of that staff, maybe 60% of that staff. And then we also have another facility for our service group and our parts group, that's dispatched out of. That's also in Pennsylvania. They're about a mile from each other. And then we do have some remote service techs across the country who dispatch directly from their locations. But yeah, and you know, during the pandemic, like, you know, like I'm sure all of the listeners had too, you know, anybody who had a computer and could do so, for the most part, was sent home, and we left our manufacturing staff and plant to be kind of in their safety bubble.
The Women in Manufacturing Association will host our 11th annual summit as a hybrid event this October 4th through the 6th. The summit is WIM's largest signature event, with more than 700 industry professionals expected to be in attendance. Join us in Cleveland, Ohio, or digitally from your own home or office for 3 days filled with plant tours at leading manufacturing facilities, roundtable discussions on timely topics, and inspiring keynotes from leaders across the industry. Sign up today by going to www.womeninmanufacturing.org/events and searching the keyword summit. So you mentioned mentorship a little bit as you talked about your father and what an amazing mentor he was for you as you got into the business, giving you guidance along the way. So how has mentorship impacted your career in addition to your father obviously being a key mentor for you? Were there others? And then as well, how are you paying it forward present day? Do you do a whole bunch of mentorship, whether it be informal or formal?
Good question. So yeah, as you said, my dad has been a huge mentor for me. I also, my first boss out of college, Cincy, she was wonderful. She's actually the one who encouraged me to take the opportunity with my father and say, hey, you know, you need to go try this. So I've had a lot of informal mentors, not necessarily some of the formal mentor programs that are out there now, which I think are amazing, but huge. It's huge to have someone to talk to about your situation and to give you ideas and guidance where you are. I also feel that I've learned from other business owners that I know, and other people working in manufacturing. WIM had been incredible for learning with other board members as well. So I think anytime you have those opportunities to learn and grow, incredibly important. And, you know, I think I've talked to you about this before. Even pre-mentor, there were role models that I saw that showed me that my vision of my leadership style or my life was possible. And, you know, I attended a conference with leaders years ago, and there was a panelist who she had a very profound impact on me, and she didn't even know, you know, she's just a panelist up on the stage. She didn't know the impact that she had, but those little seeds that she spread, you know, grow mighty trees, that made a huge impact. So I think it's important for everybody listening to remember that, you know, Mother Teresa has a great quote that says, I alone cannot change the world, but I can cast a stone across the waters to create many ripples. I think it's important to pay it forward, not just with mentorship, but also with being a role model and realizing that there's always somebody looking up to you, and you never know what kind of impact you can have. So leaving a little sparkle wherever you go, and And I argue that everyone listening is a role model, and to do so. But it's very important. And I also do formal mentorship through the Material Handling Association that I work with for in the crane industry. And then I also have mentors individually that I have come to know and built relationships with. So always trying to do that, and you learn as much doing that as you do as you're teaching those that you're actually mentoring.
Yeah, definitely very profound. And I think you made a great point, or one of the great points that you made was around sometimes being a role model without even knowing it. And
Mm-hmm.
I know throughout my career, there have been so many opportunities where I've attended conferences, listened to a speaker that has really changed how I act, behave, and lead, and or even just look at my own career trajectory. So I think, we encourage you around our members to share their story. This is one vehicle for doing that. And I think that we hope that more members and women in industry will share their stories with their community, with their coworkers, with colleagues. It's so important because it can be one small thing that can make all the difference for another person. So it's really important. And you're doing great things by sharing your story. And I think, applause to you as well, because you, like many other women in manufacturing, are just genuine and authentic. And I think that's so important too, so that people realize you can achieve great things by being your real self, by not having to be some facade of what you think needs to be a leader in manufacturing.
Absolutely, absolutely. I realized many years ago it's way more fun to just be all of me. And I used to always be, oh, there's 5% that doesn't go to work. Forget it. Be 100% myself all the time. It's more fun. I'm more effective. I wholeheartedly believe that life's too short to not be anything other than yourself. And to add, Allison, to the storytelling concept, something really interesting that I learned recently. There is an author called Rick Stone, and he has a book related to storytelling, on literally how the origins of how we learn are around telling stories around a campfire, which I found very fascinating. And that if we tell a story about what we're trying to teach or learn, or where we are, we tend to be able to put ourselves, our brain is this great simulation tool. Like essentially your brain is just, simulating experiences. When you're watching a movie, you can feel those emotions that are happening, right? So by telling our stories, we literally can and show people what is possible. And having that format of storytelling is so important for that kind of work. And Rick actually talks more about how you can use that even in your business and in other ways, but very, very interesting concept. So the more storytelling we can do, the better off we are.
I'll have to check out that book. It sounds like a good one. You're an avid reader, which is a good thing. I need to find more time to read. I've now finally subscribed to Audible, not an ad, by the way, hashtag not an ad. But I did finally subscribe so that at least during my walks, I can try to listen in. Present day, maybe just my age, reading at night just makes me zonk out and go to sleep. So I have to find other ways to do it. So as you look at your career, and obviously you have a long way to go, you're still, young and have many years of great accomplishments ahead, I'm sure. What have been, at least to date, some of your most proud moments professionally?
Okay, I was thinking about this before the call today, and you know, definitely for myself, some of my proudest moments were, well, I remember joining WIM and being a part of the board, which was very, very empowering to me, and finding kind of that home and community and the ability to talk to others who spoke the same language. That was really a big point, and being able to participate in the board and become chair. Very proud of the work that we did there. Also, stepping up to be the leader for our company and doing that cultural reboot and actually having it work and feeling the benefits. We're still a work in process, but it definitely has been successful. And then thinking of the last 2 years and COVID, and being able to overcome that, I kind of in a little black box. I don't like to go there too much because I did do a lot of wine coping during those early months. But being able to survive that and watch our people step up to the challenges was incredibly, made me incredibly proud. But then on a granular level, something that we just did recently that just kind of made me smile, a smaller example, we created in 2019 an innovation lab. And this was a concept that I had seen from another great leader, where you empower your team for R&D to have a space where you give them a few tools, things to play with, and then it's kind of a white space where they get to do whatever they want. So I had a little bit of framework. I gave them some key technology pieces that I was interested in them exploring, some key goals. And then I let the team come together, and I kept my sticky fingers out of it, right? Because I'm a lover of technology, and a lot of what we were doing was in that space. And so it's now been, almost a year and a half, not quite 2 years, that we've created that group. And the way they've pulled together, and the products that are coming out of that group, and the camaraderie that has come about, it makes me smile. And very proud that this concept actually worked. And I encourage anyone who's doing anything in the digital transformation, or doing any sort of innovation, to explore this kind of play, with looking for the ROIs. This crawl, walk, run concept really was successful for us. So that's my latest little piece, and very excited about some of the things that'll be coming out soon from us in that space.
That is huge. And what a great concept. And, to find a way to innovate in a playful way. And, you shared your love for technology. As you've led your company, what are the things what have you kind of played with as it relates to technology? And how has that play and adaptation and adoption of some of these new tools, how has that helped your company advance and be more competitive?
Well, we've even before the innovation lab. So yeah, I had bought a 3D printer years ago and realized I couldn't use it because it was above my head. So I gave it to my engineering department. They had it working within a week, and they actually used something for a customer, a month or two later. Now that was more of a home use version. Now we have actual additive and industrial printer that we use for certain tooling and components that we use. So that's evolved. We are exploring IoT, the Internet of Things, and hope to have some smart crane technology out from our company here before the end of the year. We're also looking into AI and preventative maintenance, and also building foundational blocks inside of the company to be able to take care of that, like building the communication tools, and the ability to leverage the technology and the innovations effectively. We also play with VR. I'm a gamer. I'm not your shooter gamer. I'm your puzzle gamer, but we have a VR at home, and have had since that came out, where you're looking at VR for training and education. We're also looking at extended reality on the shop floor for also for training, and we've used it already for remote factory acceptance tests and things like that. So, the philosophy that I tell the group is, crawl, walk, run, play with it a little bit, try to find some angles, take it to that next step, keep making your business case, but it's okay to mess around and learn what's going on. You don't know, if you don't play with it, you don't know what is actually there. And I think it's really important, because you can get behind and just have no idea about it, what the technology is. So I think that's good. And then the other thing with the innovation lab is that concept is giving people the pleasure of solving the problems. Like, let them be the heroes of figuring it out. It's very, very exciting.
Now, the folks that you have that are part of your innovation lab or team, were they repurposed from other positions? Is this kind of something they do in addition to their regular day-to-day work? How did you find that key team? How did you create it? And what does that look like?
It's in addition to what they do. That's mostly made up of engineering staff. We do have cross-functional from our service group, and we'll be pulling in from our shop floor. Marketing does get involved too, but yeah, they do this in addition to what they're doing for actual production jobs that we have. I think it's a nice complement of getting your brain to think in a different way. And we're also seeing benefits for cross-departmental relationships that have formed. I have two really incredible engineers that one is actually in the engineering group, one of them is in the service group, and now they've come together and they really never had a chance to interact before, which now I'm thinking that was such a crime. We should have done this years ago. But their relationship and experiences when it comes together, what they're able to cover for our business is quite remarkable. And the solutions are turning out to be really incredible. So yeah, I mean, I'm still learning as I'm going, but you've got to take a step, you got to walk the path at least, and if you're going to get to the destination. So some movement in any direction is better than no movement. It's at least my philosophy.
That's great. And so for kind of final recommendation on technology, if a company or individuals listening and wanted to get started on exploring what technology would fit within their business or what could help them problem solve, how would you suggest they get started?
I think that you maybe identify first a leader of that group. So we do have a specific lead engineer who has stepped up to lead that, to put the group together. And then also look, you can always reach out to me. I'll tell you what I did and what technology I selected, but giving a few key nuggets of ideas that you might have. I do believe as leaders, it's our idea to look down around the corner and dream a little bit about what could be, even if we don't know how to get there, and to scout new ideas and technology. And then put that into your group and then empower them to learn and say, here are some goals I'm looking for. Go out and research, go find, connect with university. We have strong connections with Penn State now. That's sort of the way that I would go about it. I'm not sure I'm giving the greatest explanation, but I think you've got to believe that if you pull the right people together, that they're going to make headway.
I think that's great advice. And again, I think you could be a great resource for lots of companies that are either starting this journey or maybe have started and need some help or support. So thanks for sharing about that. In the past 10 years, more than 3,000 new apprenticeship programs have been established within U.S. manufacturing, representing 128% growth within the industry. This isn't surprising since registered apprenticeship programs give employers access to a diverse pool of talented potential employees. The Women in Manufacturing Association has partnered with Jobs for the Future to connect our members and their companies with a streamlined way of recruiting, retaining, and training women in manufacturing through their own registered apprenticeship programs. For more information on how to build your own registered apprenticeship program, please visit our website at womeninmanufacturing.org. So, you've had, I'm sure, as many manufacturing leaders have had an interesting past 2 years, dealing with lots of things that none of us have ever seen or experienced before. So present day in kind of August of 2021, what is keeping you up at night now as a manufacturing leader, now that we've kind of survived and your company, I'm sure, is thriving post-pandemic, but what's now currently keeping you up at night?
It ties back to this technology conversation again. There's really been this speed up of using digital advancements in industry. And, we're, as we mentioned, 165 person company. A lot of the larger manufacturers have already gotten to the point where they've leveraged some of the new technology. But, there was a warning put out there by John Chambers that 50% of the Fortune 500 won't exist in 10 years. And it's a period where you either disrupt or you get disrupted. So I'm really cognizant of this, and this is why I push and put a lot of effort behind our innovation lab and behind other efforts that we have on disrupting and looking for ways to further advance our company and adapt and manage and leverage disruptive change. I mean, the last 2 years with COVID brought a lot of opportunities to integrate some new technology just on like using Teams. We didn't have that before. Some simple things. So leveraging all of those pieces and then looking forward and saying, okay, well, what else can we do? What else can we disrupt? What can we disrupt internally? Not even just disrupting our markets, but what have we done? And we've always done it this way, that needs to be shaken up a little bit and say, well, does it still need to really be done that way? And how can we make a change that makes us more competitive or makes us, able to survive? And I think something that I realized that we had and what I think is so important, both for surviving rough times like we've all experienced, but also trying to work towards using new technology and digital transformation and things that are coming, is the ability to adapt and manage and leverage disruptive change, right? And if you can really find a way to do that, I think it's a competitive advantage. So if you tie that with having the grit to continue to persevere and push and keep going despite obstacles, I think that's critical to our survival in recent years, but also will be very important and continue to be important for us into the future.
No, I totally agree. And I think I think that opportunity, as you said, many of us got forced to adapt, use many of these technology tools when in all reality, we should have been using them long before a pandemic caused us to find them. So, I mean, we as an association found the same thing. I mean, why we weren't offering or delivering virtual experiences to our meetings and events was crazy now that I look back at it and think, holy cow, we could have for years been reaching so many more women and so many more individuals. And it took a pandemic for us to realize, hey, we can actually welcome guests from not only the United States, but around the globe who can then benefit from our resources and our network. So again, it's that adaptation and leveraging that forced disruption to really help us change as an organization this past year. And we should have done it years ago. So as you look at kind of 2021, 2022 and beyond, do you have some lofty goals for American Crane and some big things in the works for the organization, then as well for yourself? Have you set some goals of things you'd like to achieve?
We have, the typical goals of trying to grow our business and things like that. What's interesting is I actually have two very small but profound goals that the granular ones that I really want to achieve here before the end of the year. And one of them, very simply, is to listen more and talk less. As you know, Allison, I never have a shortage of words. And so sometimes I need to let my people come to the conclusions themselves without necessarily driving. And this is about empowering others and letting them be awesome and having that pleasure of solving the problems. So I'm very cognizant of that as I'm trying to, keep my teams that I look at and also train the leaders that I lead to lead others this way. I think this is where real incredible problem solving and efficiency can be found in leveraging that human capital that we have. So that's my professional one, is listen more, talk less. I could probably do that with my husband too, that he might like that as well. But personally, the big thing for me is to have more space. I have realized that I don't want to run myself ragged. I don't want to have my calendar filled to the point where there's no empty slots. I want to enjoy my life. So really trying to have space, empty slots in the calendar, time where I'm recharging. I feel like not only is it good for me personally, but it also gives me time to think and to dream. For me, those spaces, work for me as a passion. So it gives me a chance in those moments to have sort of the revelations. And I feel like your brain, the neuroscience shows that your subconscious is doing a lot of things for you, and you need to kind of let things sort of marinate and come to being. So that has been personally something that I am making sure that I do, and really trying to hold true, especially as the world has opened up and there's more things to fill the space. Just being really, really intentional about that.
I think those are amazing goals. I might have to steal both and or add both to my list. I think you and I both have a similar trait of we have no shortage of things we can share.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we like to talk, but I think we both like to do so thoughtfully. But I think that's a great encouragement to let people problem solve themselves. Don't give them the answers. I have often, as maybe you do as well, I think I have lots of advice. And sometimes my timing is not the best, which I will fully own. And I'm sure my team would share as well. Sometimes I come to the table kind of midstream or mid progress with, hey, why don't we think of this? Or why didn't we think of this? And can disrupt people's plans. And I love the idea of more space. I've really tried to do that or start that this year because, being kind of sole president of WIM has been amazing to not have two jobs And so my calendar just by default has become more open, but then it started to get filled again. And that's not humane or enjoyable or fun to live a day where your whole schedule is back to back
Yep.
meetings. Because as you said, as creative people, I like to be able to think big and to be able to brainstorm and just have some time to reflect on a problem, a solution, just some other cool things that the organization could be doing or working on. And you don't have that time, and it shouldn't have to happen at 9 p.m. at night or 10 or at 5 in the morning. It should be able to happen during humane hours as well. So I love both of your goals, and I'm going to have to steal them too. So we always, with our guests, before we wrap up, like to do some rapid fire questions. So we're going to ask for some of your fave picks in a few areas. And then as well, we'll close with some advice that you have for future generations of women in manufacturing, as well as just others listening. So we'll start with, you've mentioned lots of great books, which I've taken notes on of some I'm going to have to download on Audible. But what is either your all-time favorite or just your current favorite book that you might recommend?
How about current favorite author? And so to be clear, you're talking about Audible. So I am an avid fiction reader on a Kindle, but to consume nonfiction, I have to listen. So I use Audible and I walk. That's how I consume, since I don't drive as much. I think it's a great way to consume that knowledge. But Dave Eagleman has written two books that I highly recommend. One is called Incognito, and that talks about your subconscious. It's the stranger within you, and it's very, very interesting. And then his other book is called The Brain, which again, he's a neuroscientist, so he's talking about this and basically how your brain is basically in this black box, and your eyes are essentially sensors providing input. It's very, very fascinating way to look at how we as humans live our lives and how we think, and I just found them endlessly fascinating, and also very applicable for learning more about myself and how I think and why I do things a certain way. So really, really interesting books.
I'll check those out. And let's see, your favorite quote. I know you mentioned one earlier by Mother Teresa, but do you have another favorite quote?
Yes. So this hangs in my kitchen, and this is, "Today I will be happier than a bird with a French fry." And that that stems from a New Jersey shore incident, Ocean City, New Jersey, to be specific, where my husband was attacked by seagulls. He was eating Chicky and Pete's fries. He threw them in the air. He started screaming. It was hilarious. And then afterwards that day, we found this postcard that had that quote on it. And I think when I look at it, it reminds me to be intentional about my happiness, that life is a journey, enjoy the ride. And it just makes me smile. So I like that quote to keep perspective.
I love that. And I love fries, unfortunately. Okay, so favorite movie.
Total Recall is one of my
That is
favorite.
one of my favorites.
I
That is
love that movie.
I love that movie. I've seen that a zillion times. And it's not as though I was a huge Arnold Schwarzenegger fan, but I loved it because it was all that technology and strange stuff before we even thought those things were achievable. And it's a cool movie.
Yeah, absolutely.
What was your first concert?
That would be New Kids on the Block, NKOTB, baby.
And are you still a New Kids fan?
I can't say that I've listened to them recently, but I might have to bring that back, Allison.
I think I follow some of that was my sister's generation. I think she was more of a New Kids fan than I was. I was more Depeche Mode and The Cure and Erasure and The Smiths. She loved New Kids, and she had Joey McIntyre, I think was her favorite, and was on her wall.
Yep, lots of posters, and yeah, it was fun. I haven't listened to it. I mean, I love the 90s too, all 90s music. But yeah, I'm gonna have to go back and re-listen to some of those songs.
That is hysterical. Who are you listening to right now? What's one of your favorite artists presently?
Okay, you're gonna laugh, and this is just by default. We were at in Ocean City, New Jersey. We have a shore house there, and there was a night in Venice party, and we had a free Britney party. We had to have a theme, and so we were listening to Britney Spears, and I have to say I hadn't remembered how much I enjoyed Britney. It was actually really good. So I've been listening to a little Britney. I don't know. I'm more of a husband put on the music and listen to what he has going on, but really anything 90s. is usually my favorite.
Yeah, 90s, you can't go wrong with
No,
90s music. And I love that you had a free Britney party.
it was very funny, very, very comical. But those "Oops, I Did It Again." I haven't heard that in a long time. Bringing back some of those great, great songs. It was a lot of fun.
What was the last place you traveled, and where do you next plan to travel?
Well, it's been a very calm last couple years, but I did get to go to Marco Island in May this year, to Florida. I was there for a work event, and it was actually really nice. I'd never been to Marco. Beautiful beach. Being able to walk out and have it be nice and warm and hang out was great. And then I think we're still going to stay local for some of our travel, but I'm hoping to go to Vermont, go back to where I used to work, to Stratton, and ski. We're hoping to do that over the holiday this year for Christmas. So get to go out and enjoy a little snow.
Very nice. And a work from home hack or secret?
This is one, I think it's good for work from home, but also for like life in general, work anywhere. And that's the idea of being your mind's commander, not its soldier. And really being aware of multitasking, knowing that you do not multitask, you switch. And if you are constantly switching, you're prone to make mistakes. So some of what work from home has showed us is that single tasking, when we're able to not be interrupted, if we're able to work from home, you get that flow, that really good feeling where you forget, oh my gosh, all this time went by and I didn't realize it. That's where we want to go. So I think having single focused targets helps you feel less scattered and less distracted. And so that includes not looking at email all the time. I do not have my email up all the time. I do not check it constantly. I batch it in the morning, midday, at the end. And then also taking the notifications off both your computer and your phone so that you're not getting pinged all the time. There are a whole group of people in Silicon Valley who are studying how to get you to pay attention to them and to their apps on your phone and all that. So turning off all of that so you can be single tasked. There's another great book, Maura Thomas, Personal Productivity Secrets. She has a lot of really good practical techniques on how to really get to single tasking, how to find your flow, and also, how to a system for managing all of the reminders that you yourself give yourself. Like you probably right now also be like, oh my God, I gotta pick up the kids. I need to send that email. I got to go do that. She has a system for capturing all of that. So you can give your brain a break of constantly reminding you of things. So highly, highly recommend it.
I'm going to have to immediately get that. I'm the queen of lists, and I have about 5 of them on my desk, which I'm sure is not the best productivity tool. Yeah, because it's a disruption. I love the idea of, what did you call it? Single tasking?
Single tasking. Yep.
Single tasking. And I think that's so true. And I've even found now, present day, if I'm in a groove and I'm getting a lot done in one specific area, I won't be bashful and I'll request to a team member, hey, can we move this meeting to tomorrow? Because I'm really getting some stuff done here. And it would be best if, this one isn't timely and critical, and can we move it? Because when you're in that groove and you're able to get a lot done in a single focused area, it's huge.
That juiciness that you felt, Allison, is that flow. They call that flow. Yeah. That's what you're striving for. That's the sweet spot.
I need to achieve it more. And then as you look at one piece of advice that you'd want to share with the next generation of women in manufacturing, or just listeners who are with us today.
Well, first, I just want to thank everyone who's out there who's in our industry. So we're turning the flywheel. I think the future is bright for women in manufacturing. And I think the more of us who are out there, the more of us who are sharing our stories, I guess that would be the advice is share the stories of what you're doing. And no matter where you are in your career, they are all still important. And be authentic and have fun, right? We talked about that in the beginning. Keep it real. Life's too short to be somebody else. And I think if we can stay authentic, have fun, and share our stories, it would be fantastic for all of us.
It definitely would. Well, Karen, it was so great to catch up with you and just to have a chat. And as always, you're an excellent ambassador for our organization, for the industry. And thanks for all the great work that you're doing and sharing your story with us today. So thanks for being a guest on Hear Her Story.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for listening to Hear Her Story, a podcast produced by the Women in Manufacturing Association. Be sure to share, review, and subscribe to hear her story on Apple, Google, Spotify, or wherever you like to listen.